Hello, John.
Hello, Oliver.
So we're going to talk about Brexit and Boris Johnson and, of course, Mr. Hunt. They're both vying for the leadership.
Yes, the last two in the race, there was several, and it's like a horse race. The ones that come up last were eliminated, quite a few of them. And apparently there was a strong Brexit candidate besides Boris Johnson. And he or she was eliminated. I think it was a she. So now it's between Boris Johnson and this other Mr. Hunt, Jeffrey Hunt, perhaps his first name is. I think he was the Chancellor. And suffice to say that I think he would have been on the Remainer side. Now, Theresa May, that was the Prime Minister, that didn't seem capable of reaching an agreement with the EU bureaucrats, and she seemed to me to be quite inept in that she called an election when she had a good majority and wound up with no majority, only depending on the Unionist, the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland. And so she was compromised from the start in this serious negotiation. So you have to have a political nous. If I have 100 of a majority, I'm not going to, irrespective of what polls suggest, I'm not going to cause an election. Now she'll be resigning. She's still Prime Minister, and the favourite to succeed is Boris Johnson. Now, Boris Johnson is treated by the media like President Donald John Trump is treated like in America, in the US. The media and the Remainers have tried to destroy Boris Johnson. He has neighbours. When he had, what often people have is a domestic tiff with their wives or partners. There's no such thing as a relationship that doesn't have raised voices from time to time. It goes with the territory. So
Sometimes it can get a bit
unfortunately, he has neighbours, we call them neighbours from hell. They lowered the television and put a microphone to hear what it was about. One was violently anti-Boris Johnson and even abused him verbally when he was leaving the apartment one time, and put something on his car in the car park. So she's a playwright and all the rest of it, but pro Jeremy Corbyn and anti-Tory, and certainly anti-Boris Johnson. So these were neighbours that you could prefer not to be beside. So they did that and rang the police and then sent the audio tape that they had to the Guardian newspaper. So they've got criticised for it. It has shown them up. And so they've actually done Boris Johnson a bit of good because some people say he's normal like the rest of us. He has a row. And but these people were trying to use anything they could to throw mud at him, as the media are trying to do. So he will be successful, and he should be, in my opinion, a good, strong leader for the United Kingdom, for Britain, and that way it should benefit this country. We, unfortunately, being a neighbour of Britain, and should, in the background, support the British to try and get a fair deal for them, not to sort of go against them and be kind of used by the EU as a battering ram to try and make it very difficult for the British to reach a common sense deal with the EU. It makes sense to have a common sense deal that allows the British to sort of be friends with the EU, trade with them in some way without having to sort of compromise the fact that they want to leave it and run their own affairs. I think that is the way for civilised countries to deal with each other. Intransigence doesn't work whatsoever, as we discovered in this country to our cost when we got our freedom, resulting in a civil war for which there was no need for. Because Mr. De Valera, the leader of Fianna Fáil, had already been over in Downing Street and heard from Lloyd Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister at the time, that was on the table, or Lloyd George, whoever it was, that was going to be the treatment for Ireland. So he knew, and then he didn't go and charged a civil war. So we paid a dear price for our freedom. Now we have this Brexit. Britain wants to leave the EU, and they're entitled to leave it, and entitled to get a fair deal. And Ireland's best interest is served because Britain is our biggest customer for our exports in the food line, particularly. We do a lot of own labour for the major British supermarkets and other outlets over there, so it's a very important market. Plus we have over 1 million or more Irish-born people resident in Britain, and now their children are British, so we have a good relationship with that country. And until Mr. Varadkar arrived as Taoiseach and Prime Minister, that situation seems it doesn't obtain. And this is the time to show support for that country and to use one's influence in the EU to try and reach a deal that will be beneficial to both, and then beneficial to us, because goodwill is very important. If I go against you or anybody else and align myself with some bigger group, you're not going to be too pleased, and they're not too pleased, the press, as far as I can see, in the UK about the behaviour of the Irish government led by this Mr. Varadkar. And funny enough, he's just become out recently that he might be more reasonable, but his party are adamant about the path that they're pursuing. So he doesn't take responsibility in some ways for this behaviour. John Malone and the Christian and Jobs Action Party suggests and proposes to adopt a common sense approach to this matter and stop whinging about what will happen in the North and all the rest of it. The North runs their own affairs, and they're not that bothered about us one way or another. And we interfere with their policy so much so that we want now to invite women that want to have children born, and that they can come down here and have an abortion for nothing. So we just should keep our nose out of that for the time being, and give them every support that we can as regards the British and their approach to the EU to try and get a fair deal. Doesn't it make sense?
It does, but what about if Brexit brings about, let's suppose, a united Ireland? There is the question of the NHS. What happens? Because I mean, it's a first-class service, it's free. So does Ireland take over that?
Well, you see, that's a very important question. Oftentimes in the British press they're given out about the NHS, that there's problems and difficulties and people's lives being lost because they haven't got the treatment they deserve. So from time to time there's a lot of problems in Britain about the NHS. And I think Theresa May now is trying to put a lot of money into it before she leaves, and to try to compromise whoever succeeds her, especially if it's Boris Johnson. So she shouldn't be allowed to do anything like that. The National Health Service was brought in by the Labour Party years ago when they could perhaps afford it, because they were a very prosperous country. Now, it's becoming very expensive to run, and they're talking about various ways of trying to deal with it. At the same time, they have this, they have a great system, so I can understand where that's coming from.
It just shows the complexity of Brexit.
Yeah.
I mean, that you'd have to, Ireland would actually probably, I don't know how it would work, we'd have to look after, in the 6 counties, we'd have to provide a free medical service, or would we? I don't know. I mean,
yeah, but I think the idea of a United Ireland coming in my lifetime, even if I lived another 60 years, with pills and who knows what. I can only tell you, I don't see it coming, because who in some ways, aside from the ones from East Europe and throughout the world, are landing here because of our social welfare system and getting everything for free. So that would be something that couldn't be maintained if the north of Ireland, for one reason or another, become into this jurisdiction. Health would be at least, that'd be one factor, but there'd be a whole heap of other factors, because they have been supported by Britain to the tune of billions. If it wasn't for the British supporting them, supporting the north of Ireland more than any other region in the UK, that the best of roads and the best of facilities in that country, the best of hospitals, and the best of treatment in every sense of the word, because they're kind of unique. They're nearly, like as I say, it's nearly a colony in that sense, a British possession overseas, and they haven't got too many of them. So they probably want to hold on to it, and the ones in the north have done quite well out of it. They wouldn't do as well down here, because they come down here and to see how expensive it is here. It's far less expensive up in the north, by the way, in a lot of areas. Food is cheaper, even though even if sterling was higher than the euro, it's still cheaper. The cost of houses is cheaper, even in big towns and cities, unlike here in Dublin, the prices are astronomical. And now they don't want you to drive a car, so they want to put you on Shanks Mayor. So this jurisdiction leaves a bit to be desired from anybody wanting to enter it from the north.
And of course our contribution will significantly increase also. I mean, we've got to give more to the EU financially.
Yes, well, you see, why would you be forking out more money than they're giving you? At the moment now they've forked out over $1 billion, and Britain is still in it, and the new Prime Minister, if it's Boris Johnson, he's going to deal pragmatically, and if they don't get a deal, he's not going to give them this $39 billion that they say that they need to pay. So you've got to have common sense when you're dealing with a country like Britain or any other country.
The EU wants 39 billion?
From Britain that they owe that. And
wow.
Boris Johnson, if he's elected leader, is not going to pay that if he doesn't get a reasonable deal. And he intends to leave by next October, not this pussyfooting, kicking the ball down the road and hoping that by the time everything is settled, they're still in the EU, but they don't want to be in it. So like, people voted to leave it in their millions. And irrespective of what the media don't report facts. They keep talking about facts, but they don't report facts. They report their agenda and their opinions. And I can guarantee that the left-wing press will be against Boris Johnson, because he'll be a good leader for Britain. Same as President Trump is a good leader.
So you think Boris Johnson is going to be the future Prime Minister?
Without a doubt.
And you like him?
I do.
Very good.
Well, I like a person that has opinions and is not afraid to express them. I dislike the political correct agenda that we have in this country, where opinions that don't match that are criticised by the secular agenda in the media and in the government. And the sooner that we don't hear too much more of them, the better.
Between climate change and Brexit, Ireland has a lot on its plate.
We'll talk about this climate nonsense later, because there's issues involved in that. I said before, as soon as that Green Party get in, as soon as they raise their ugly heads above the water and people are stupid enough to vote for them, you're going to hear nothing about but climate change and taxing this, that and the other, because it's an excuse to raise taxes. They were yapping about carbon footprints years ago. It nearly made me puke. And thank God they were toughed out, but now they're back in again, like a disease.
We'll cover it anyway in the next video.
We will.